And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above.
This is Frankfurt, Germany. 50 years after the Bank of England opened its doors, a goldsmith named Amschel Moses Bauer opened a coin shop, a counting house, in 1743. And over the door, he placed a sign depicting a Roman eagle on a red shield. The shop became known as the Red Shield Firm, or in German, Rothschild.
And over the door, he placed a sign depicting a Roman eagle on a red shield. The shop became known as the Red Shield Firm, or in German, Rothschild. The shop became known as the Red Shield Firm, or in German, Rothschild.
And over the door, he placed a sign depicting a Roman eagle on a red shield. The shop became known as the Red Shield Firm, or in German, Rothschild. When his son, Amschel Meyer Bauer, inherited the business, he decided to change his name to Rothschild. Amschel soon learned that loaning money to governments and kings was more profitable than loaning to private individuals. Not only were the loans bigger, but they were secured by the nation's taxes. Mayer Rothschild had 5 sons. He trained them all in the skills of money creation, then sent them out to the major capitals of Europe to open branch offices of the family banking business. His first son, Amschel Meyer, stayed in Frankfurt to mind the hometown bank. His second son, Solomon, was sent to Vienna. His third son, Nathan, was clearly the most clever. He was sent to London at age 21 in 1798, 100 years after the founding of the Bank of England. His fourth son, Karl, went to Naples, and his fifth son, Jacob, went to Paris. In 1785, Mayer Amschel moved his entire family to this larger house, a 5-story dwelling he shared with the Schiff family. This house was known as the Green Shield. The Rothschilds and the Schiffs would play a central role in the rest of European financial history and in that of the United States. The Rothschilds broke into dealings with European royalty here at Wilhelmshof, the palace of the wealthiest man in Germany. In fact, the wealthiest monarch in all Europe, Prince William of Hesse-Kassel. At first, the Rothschilds were only helping William speculate in precious coins. But when Napoleon chased Prince William into exile, he sent 550,000 pounds, a gigantic sum at that time, to Nathan Rothschild in London with instructions for him to buy consols, British government bonds, also called government stock. But Rothschild used the money for his own purposes. With Napoleon on the loose, the opportunities of wartime investments were nearly limitless. William returned here sometime prior to the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. He summoned Rothschild and demanded his money back. The Rothschilds returned William's money with the interest the British consuls would have paid him had the investment actually been made. But the Rothschilds kept all the past profits they had made using William's money. Nathan Rothschild later bragged that in the 17 years he'd been in England, he'd increased his original 20,000 pound stake given to him by his father by 2,500 times. By cooperating within the family, the Rothschilds soon grew unbelievably wealthy. By the mid-1800s, they dominated all European banking and were certainly the wealthiest family in the world. They financed Cecil Rhodes, making it possible for him to establish a monopoly over the diamond and gold fields of South Africa. In America, they financed the Harrimans and railroads, the Vanderbilts and railroads and the press, and Carnegie in the steel industry, among many others. In fact, during World War I, J.P. Morgan was thought to be the richest man in America. But after his death, it was discovered that he was actually only a lieutenant of the Rothschilds. Once Morgan's will was made public, it was discovered that he owned only 19% of J.P. Morgan companies. By 1850, James Rothschild, the heir of the French branch of the family, was said to be worth 600 million French francs, 150 million more than all the other bankers in France put together. He built this mansion called Ferrier, just east of Paris. Wilhelm I, on seeing it, exclaimed, "Kings couldn't afford this. It could only belong to a Rothschild." Another 19th century French commentator put it this way: "There is but one power in Europe, and that is Rothschild." There is no evidence that their predominant standing in European or world finance has changed.
And by thy sword shalt thou live.
Bismarck, Chancellor of Germany, lamented the death of Abraham Lincoln.
The death of Lincoln was a disaster for Christendom. There was no man in the United States great enough to wear his boots. I fear that foreign bankers, with their craftiness and torturous tricks, will entirely corrupt the exuberant riches of America and use it systematically to corrupt modern civilization. They will not hesitate to plunge the whole of Christendom into wars and chaos in order that the earth should become their inheritance.
A trial occurred in 1855 at a courthouse in Illinois that would bring two fateful men together. These two men would join forces to fight the Jesuits. The first was a rebellious Roman Catholic priest by the name of Charles Chiniquy. The second was a lawyer by the name of Abraham Lincoln. Charles Chiniquy did not approve of the corrupt conduct of many of the priests he knew. These evil priests were drunkards, sexually promiscuous, and thieves, often stealing money and property collected from their parishioners.
The priesthood in Chicago was very corrupt, morally and every other way. They were drinking heavily. They would go on these retreats and take up a collection between themselves, put it all in a pot, and go out and buy a lot of booze. And they also rented a lot of hookers. Apparently there was a lot of sexual deviance going on at the time as well. And he didn't like that, though, and he tried to change it. He quoted exclusively from the Bible, and his bishop just could not tolerate that.
The heads of the Roman Church wanted Chiniquy to ignore these illicit and illegal activities. When he did not, Bishop Reagan of Chicago and another priest by the name of LaBelle arranged to have Chiniquy accused of rape.
The heads of the Roman Church wanted Chiniquy to ignore these illicit and illegal activities. When he did not, Bishop Reagan of Chicago and another priest by the name of LaBelle arranged to have Chiniquy accused of rape.
They said that you said it was okay to rape 12-year-old girls. I don't know if that's true.
Chiniquy needed a good attorney. An attorney by the name of Abraham Lincoln was suggested.
Abraham Lincoln had a team of other lawyers under him, right? It's like a regular defense team. Lincoln being one lawyer, a gentleman by the name of Stephen R. Moore was another lawyer. And that was a big court case at the time. It was the most important court case that Lincoln ever had in his entire legal career, as a matter of fact. But it's been buried by the Illinois government.
The trial did not go well for Chiniquy. The general feeling was that he would be convicted.
Local newspapers of the time They speculated that Chiniki was going to be found guilty, and that was being broadcast throughout the entire Catholic community at that time.
Fortunately for Chiniquy, a witness came forward for the defense. Her name was Philomene Schwartz. Miss Schwartz had been in Father LaBelle's house the day the plot to frame Chiniquy had been concocted. Schwartz contacted Lincoln and agreed to testify.
She caught the midnight train to Urbana and met up with Abraham Lincoln and explained to him exactly what happened.
Once Bishop Reagan and Father LaBelle found out about the potential witness, they fled the city. The prosecution dropped the charges, and Chiniquy was vindicated. As they left the courtroom, Charles Chiniquy was in tears.
Lincoln says to him, "Why are you crying, Mr. Chiniquy?" He says, your enemies have fled, and you're free to go." And he said, "I'm not crying for myself, Mr. Lincoln. I'm crying for you." He said, "Because I saw no less than 11 Jesuits with the sentence of death on their face today in this courtroom, and know for a surety they will kill you for what you have done." Lincoln says, "Well, then let this be my death warrant," and he gives Chiniquy a bill for a mere $50. And then Lincoln sobers up and said, "It matters not where a man must die, but that he must die at the post of duty and honor."
Chiniquy's words of warning to Lincoln would prove to be true. The conspiratorial hand of the Jesuits at work.
Masonry has been around a long, long time. It may not have always been called Freemasonry.
We have to understand that the first secret societies came after the Holy Crusades. The Crusaders were exposed to many new ideas in the Middle East, and these stories retold the story of the devil giving Eve the apple.
The origin I'm talking about are the mystery religions. This is what has ruled the entire world since before the flood and after. Secret knowledge, enlightenment, the Kabbalah, sun worship, moon worship, stellar worship, paganism. This practice goes by many names, but in the end, it all comes back to Mystery Babylon, the teachings of the fallen angels.
When the Crusaders returned home, they knew that they'd be put to death for talking about these things, so they created several secret societies where men were sworn to secrecy under oaths and pain of death if they talked about anything outside the circle. These secret societies were the Templars, the Rosicrucians, and Freemasons.
Since the Dark Ages, misguided, selfish individuals have joined various cults such as the OTO, the Knights Templar, and Freemasonry in order to study different elements of ritual, blood oaths, and a form of the Kabbalah.
You got to realize how powerful, brilliant, intelligent these men are, and how dark it is as well.
They practice ancient occult blood rituals to gain favor with the Nephilim or demons, principalities, and fallen angels. Higher-up members may blackmail lower-ranking members, and the cycle continues. They believe themselves to be above the law and have a right to control those below them.
The upper levels of Freemasonry require the initiate to memorize dozens of pages of text written in Hebrew and study symbols used in the Goetia to invoke spirits.
In fact, they have the entire Star of David in many Masonic temples. Why is that? Masonry is a study of Judaism and of the Kabbalah. Albert Pike said in his book Morals and Dogma that the Kabbalah is the very basis. Without the Kabbalah, we would not have the 33 ritual.
The Jewish Tribune newspaper on October 28, 1927, stated, "Freemasonry is based on Judaism. Eliminate the teachings of Judaism from the Masonic ritual, and what is left?"
In the book, I discuss Zionism. Some of you don't know a lot about the word Zionism, but it really is the reason why Israel over there is involved in a life and death struggle with the Palestinians.
We know that the origins of the modern Zionist movement was started by the Rothschild family. As the legends go, the family changed their name from Bauer to Rothschilds, which means red shield, as family patriarch Mayer Anscheld Bauer began hanging a red hexagram in front of their house to identify it. And as many have pointed out, there is an uncanny relationship with the six-sided star, with the number of the beast, 666.
But the Rothschilds and the Masons, they combined together, and through this combination, in came birth through Adam Weishaupt. And Adam Weishaupt, he is the leader and the founder of the Illuminati.
The Illuminati is a group of bankers that start with the Rothschilds. And there were one Rothschild was 5 sons. And each Rothschild controlled a part of Europe. One son was England, one son was France, one son was Spain, one son was Germany. And they started a banking system in Europe, the Rothschilds. It was a Jewish family. And their banking practice got so big that they began to finance governments. The bank began to finance wars.
The whole family was driven by an insatiable lust for the accumulation of wealth and power. They secretly financed both sides in various European wars, dominated European banking, and by the mid-1800s had become the richest family in the world.
Rothschild helped found Israel, and Rothschild has always been the backer of Israel.
Many folks today believe that the Orthodox Judaism that is present in modern-day Israel is simply those who follow the Torah or the Old Testament. This, however, is not true at all.
Does Judaism, as it is practiced today, have anything to do with the patriarchs and prophets of the Old Testament? Nothing. Nothing at all.
They don't believe God. They don't believe Jesus Christ. They don't believe the Old Testament. They don't believe the New Testament. They don't believe any of it.
You know, we're told that in the Old Testament that the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, were worshipers of one God. That's never been true, not true now, and never will be true.
They don't want you to look in the Bible and say, well, what is it about what they're saying in there that made Farrakhan say the synagogue of Satan and say false Jews? What is it?
You know, in Revelation 2 and 3, there's interesting verses which talk about them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
It's not hard to figure out who the synagogue of Satan is when you realize that there's only one religion in this world that uses synagogues.
It's not an accident that in those days, the Jews wanted Jesus dead. That's actual fact. That's not hate teachings. If you read the Bible, that's an actual fact. They can't escape that.
Do you believe that the Jews killed Jesus?
It's possible the Jews did kill Jesus.
Right.
So let's say they did. Right? Maybe he deserved to die, but maybe he was a troublemaker. Let's assume we did. So we killed somebody.
I hope the Jews did kill Christ. I'd do it again.
The church fathers blamed the Jews for the death of Jesus, and that is Paul's doing. To this day, 26% of all Americans believe that Jews were responsible in the death of Jesus.
When Mel Gibson came out with his Temptation of Christ, oh, he's an anti-Semite. What a horrible person. He says the Jews, killed Jesus. Well, that's what the Bible says.
You should just fucking smile and blow me!
Israel. The second you mention the word Israel, the nation Israel, the concept Israel, many in the American press become very defensive. We're not allowed to be highly critical of the state of Israel. And the other thing we're not allowed to do is discuss the notion that Israel and the notion of Israeli interests may in fact be dictating what America is doing.
But I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They control both members of the House and the Senate. They have us involved in wars of which we have little or no interest. Our children are coming back in body bags. Our nation is bankrupt over these wars. And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. They control much of the media. They control much of the commerce of the country. And they control powerfully both bodies of the Congress. They own the Congress.
Are you an anti-Semite?
No, I'm not. That's exactly what they're going to say.
To modern-day Christ-rejecting Israel, anyone who holds a biblical view that the Jews are no longer God's chosen people is labeled by the media as an anti-Semite.
Hollywood is run by Jews. It's owned by Jews. I'm angry with some of the Jews.
This video should hopefully answer the question of who is really controlling the world. The quite laughable suggestion that the Rothschilds are running the world is lunacy. A few minutes of research shows who is really running the show. Of course, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. What is my evidence for these claims? the founder of the Rothschild dynasty. Mayer Amschel Rothschild is the definition of a Hofjuden, a papal court Jew. It is a fact that Mayer Amschel Rothschild was a crown agent of the Holy Roman Empire, having been granted this position in 1800 by the emperor. Rome was running the world before the Rothschild came along. What on earth would make you think they aren't running it now?
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne.